All right, in our main event in the flyweight division, we have number 1 Brandon Moreno versus number 3 Brandon Royval. Royval. And as has become accustomed to the division, it is a rematch.
Yes.
Starting off with the Assassin Baby.
That is the top of the flyweight division.
Yeah. Starting off with the Assassin Baby, Moreno is coming off a loss to current champion Pantoja last July at UFC 290. Since 2020, Moreno is 5-2 with a draw. Ironically, after beating Royval was his draw with Figueiredo, and every fight after that for Moreno has been a rematch. For Raw Dog Royval, he too is coming off of a loss to the champion to Pantoja. Before that loss, Royval was on a 3-fight win streak. This will be a relatively quick turnaround for Royval after a hard-fought decision. Losing 2 fights in 3 months would be making it tough for him to make his climb back to the title, but a win could springboard him closer to the top. But with both of these guys having lost to the current champion, they'll need to have a huge performance to be granted another one anytime soon.
Alrighty, with that, Brandon, give us your pick.
I'm ready. So for this fight, these guys are really evenly matched. I went back and watched their fight, which I know is kind of a weird stoppage with Royval in terms of the injury, but it was kind of taken all over the place. Like, there was a lot of good striking exchanges, a lot of good grappling exchanges, but I think that Moreno has an edge in both of the... Well, I think Moreno definitely has the edge in striking, and I think he's good enough to submit Royval on the ground, but I think, man, with these fights, it's just so hard to really tease apart the drastic differences because one's not better than the other in cardio. But for me, I'm going to lean Moreno here because I think he has more tools and he has the win. So I think the mental side of this is going to play into this, where Royval is coming off the loss and they fought before, and I just think that Moreno has that mindset to get this done, and it's 3 rounds, right? Or 5.
5.
Sorry, 5. Sorry, 5. So I'm going to take Moreno. I actually think he's going to get his submission. So I'm going to say Moreno by 3rd round submission. He got decently close a few times in their last fight.
Yeah, this will be an interesting one. Kind of what I said in the lead up is, Moreno's had more time to kind of recover from a really tough split decision fight, whereas December, it has been a couple months, but that was a really tough fight for Brandon Royval, and it's interesting to see how he's going to be able to make some adjustments, because I think Pantoja is another one of those guys that's super well-rounded, like a Moreno, where he's just going to have to bring everything he has and bring a wrinkle, because, like I said, this is just the land of rematches here, so adjustments is a big part. I think Moreno does a really good job in those situations. Obviously, not all of them has gone his way, like the Pantoja, but with the Figgy fights, he was able to figure some things out. So I think he makes some adjustments here as well. I do like his boxing a lot. I do like his submission threat. So I'm going to take Brandon Moreno by decision, because I think Royval is going to be tough to put away.
One thing that really stands out to me in this matchup right away is this is Moreno's first non-title fight since 2020. And in his last non-title matchup back in November of 2020, he beat none other than Brandon Royval. But aside from being his last non-title fight and win, 2020 was also the last time Moreno wasn't on a pay-per-view. And other than the Royval fight, which was a pay-per-view, he has been in either the main or co-main event slots of those pay-per-view, which to me is a big advantage going into this matchup, because not only does he have a win over Royval, but he's also way more experienced in big moments and big spots, because even though this Saturday is just a fight night, I'm sure it's going to feel like a pay-per-view in that arena, especially when Moreno hits those curtains. Another little quick nugget I'll drop, and this really doesn't factor into my pick, but it's just more of something to watch out for. I think, the only time Brandon Royval has lost back-to-back fights in his career was when he lost to Brandon Moreno and Alexandre Pantoja back in 2020 and 2021, and here we sit almost 4 years later, and there's a chance he could go back-to-back losses again against Pantoja and Moreno. And it's not much to look at unless you're, really into superstitions, but I did want to throw that out there, obviously. But in terms of the matchup, I do think it's a fairly close one. Royval does crack on the feet. We have seen Moreno drop by Pantoja and Figgy. So who's to say Royval can't? Royval also some slick jiu-jitsu and grappling abilities. I think Royval is also super tough, durable, which in a 5-round fight at elevation, anything can happen. That's, and I think that could be said for every fight on this card with the elevation. But with Royval being so durable and training at elevation himself, I think he does have a bit of an advantage there, but I did see Moreno is back out in Mexico training for this fight as well. So I think he's going to be prepared for that elevation as well. I also think Royval showed in the Pantoja fight that he was just a little ways off the mark in terms of fighting at this championship level right now. And that's not to say he can't or never will, but just too much removed from that last showing. where he kind of took a beating, plus taking this fight on about 1 month's notice against one of the best flyweights in the world. I just have a hard time not going with Brandon Moreno here because I just don't see how Royval would have had time to get back to work on some of those things from the Pantoja fight. And he was taken down 8 times in that Pantoja fight, and that's the second time in his career that that's happened to Brandon Royval. And sure, he does. Like I said, he has the jiu-jitsu chops to handle it, but against another good grappler in Brandon Moreno, it's just not ideal.
Especially on that backpack, man.
Yeah.
Brandon Moreno is really good at that as well, and Pantoja had a lot of success.
I think a decision is likely, but again, altitude, things do get weird. So I think Moreno does get another finish here, and I will say 3rd round. Let's go. What'd you take? You took a submission. I'll take a 3rd round KO TKO.
Okay.